Greetings, fellow test subjects. Test subject 1337 here for Aperture Gaming. They make it. We test it. You play it. And welcome to the 4th annual Aperture Gaming Award Show, where we look back at the year and we go from worst to first, giving out awards for accomplishments in gaming and pointing out problems that need to be addressed. I'm trying to make sure I get this filmed, edited, and posted before the end of the year because, as some of you may have noticed, my 2022 review was posted well a month into the year of 2023. Yeah, not my best work. Speaking of work, this is, like I said, my 4th show, so I'm still learning. So yeah, like this year is when I was finally requested to add gameplay footage, and this was also, it was around like halfway through the month of October I realized maybe I should have held on to some of the footage to use for the award show. So hopefully next year I will have had this figured out. But yeah, I've also kind of tweaked the format a little bit again. So yeah, and instead you'll be seeing storyboard clip art that I was working on for this. Okay, not storyboard clip art, but just some. Oh, anyway, the point is, I hope you enjoy. So before we get into the winners, we have to cover, like I said, from worst to first. So let's start with the worst.
Worst game.
Mathematically speaking, the more games you play, the odds are higher that you're going to find a bad game. And unfortunately, lightning struck twice for me in that scenario. The first bad game of the year goes to Hammer of Virtue, which I've heard the creator is taking feedback and actually trying to improve the game and offer a discount if you want to purchase anything else from them. So there's that. But the absolute worst game of the year, for me, unfortunately, was The Lord of the Rings Golem. Yeah. This game was so awful that, so like, I know that I've heard people talking about this like King Kong game being the worst game of the year, but I haven't played it, so I can't really say yay or nay. But yeah, Lord of the Rings Golem is my worst game of the year also, and here's the reasons why as we go into the next category.
Worst studio.
Video game studios, I swear, when you mess up, everyone knows about it. So there's unfortunately, a lot of studios this year made some pretty poor choices. So we'll start in with the Lord of the Rings studio. Daedalic Entertainment. Aside from making a bad game, here's what happened. After the game came out, they realized it was bad. So they have about a staff of 90 people. They axed a third of those people, first off. And they axed a third of those people before trying to work on the update. The update it took 2 months for them to make, and unfortunately didn't seem to really, do anything to improve the game. And also, the apology letter that was sent out after the game was poorly received, and before they started working on it, I saw an article that says the letter was generated using ChatGTP. So, yeah, Daedalic Entertainment is definitely one of the worst studios of the year for that. But there was a bunch of other people that screwed up this year. First off, alright, here we go. The Escapist magazine. I've been a fan of zero punctuation for years, but here's what. The Escapist magazine recently fired one of their employees, and as a result of that, the entire video development department walked out, including zero punctuation himself, Yahtzee Croshaw. They now have their own studio and channel here on YouTube. Yeah, so that was I don't know what the Escapist did, but clearly something really bad for that to happen. Interesting to see that level of loyalty with your coworkers, though. Another studio that really messed up this year was Unity. Why? Well, because Unity, they were trying to set up a new payment thing where, like, every time a game with Unity was installed on something, they would get some money for it. And unfortunately, because of this, this was poorly received. Everyone said it was horrible. In fact, Cult of the Lamb is being taken off Steam because of this. Hopefully I get this review up in time for you to get it, so if you want to. Anyway, the CEO actually resigned from the backlash, and a studio called Game Maker is making its software of the same name free for non-commercial use as a result of this backlash, so Unity really screwed up there. See, another few studios that messed up this year, Square Enix, because next year Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is coming out, but it won't let you transfer your save data from the first game over to the second one. There's a game series from a couple of years ago on the PlayStation 2 era called Dot Hack. It was a 4-part game, and it actually if you had all of the data on the same memory card, you could transfer it from one game to the next one. Kind of makes sense for story progression, and because you had to build up your level over each game. How is a PlayStation 2 game has more common sense than a game from the modern day systems? Alright, next, Rockstar Games, because when they released the 20th anniversary of Grand Theft Auto, the game apparently has issues, and rather than fix these issues, they weren't. So people who are not with the company, modders, were doing that. And the company's like, wait, they're doing our job for us, but not charging the customers? They were issued a cease and desist lawsuit. So, yeah, Rockstar, yeah. Oh, and then, okay, finally, one of the big ones would be Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft, they did a cool thing where someone actually, in real life, someone's cat had the Assassin's Creed logo on their face. And they were somehow able to incorporate that into their latest game, Assassin's Creed Mirage. And while that's a cool thing, Ubisoft is doing some stuff which I am less than satisfied about. Let's see, in late November, they announced that next year they'll be releasing the 20th anniversary edition of Beyond Good and Evil. And here's the thing, the sequel was announced in 2008. So seriously, you're announcing the 20th anniversary of a game and you still haven't worked on no sign of the sequel? Come on. Yeah, the last update about it, that was in 2020. Also, next year they're going to be doing they're going to be closing out a bunch of digital support for online digital multiplayer games. I gotta admit, Assassin's Creed multiplayer, the first Brotherhood one was the first one. It was the first free multiplayer I ever played, and I enjoyed it. And now it's sad to see it going. And then of course Ubisoft made the very poor decision of saying how, oh yeah, if you're inactive on your Ubisoft account, then it'll be locked out or possibly closed out. Yeah, Ubisoft made some very poor choices this year, and I just spent a good chunk of this video ranting about that. I apologize.
Trust issues.
One last thing to go in the ranting category. While this isn't exactly, it's not the worst studio of the year like the previous ones. This is for trust issues is with Microids. A couple of years ago, I bought the game Black Sad Under the Skin for the Nintendo Switch. It had issues on release, and communication back and forth with them about fixing it, and the progress of it was not good. So here's about 3 games came out this year, 1 in September and 2 in November. And 2 of the titles are from franchises that I know and love, and one I had no idea about, but it looked interesting. And I was like, oh, I want to give these games a try. Then I saw who developed them, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to hit the brakes. I want to play these games, but I want to wait a little bit because I want to see other people play them before I decide to invest my money. Irony, as I've done reviews myself. But also, I think it's a good thing. I want to give them a couple of months to sort everything out because I've seen a few of the games have mixed reviews and get some negative feedback for problems. So yeah, Microids is going to have to wait a little bit before I invest in those 3 games. Alright, we've covered the worst, and now we're working our way up to the first. So who's going to take home this year's coveted Golden Controller Award? Alright, who's going to take home the award? Well, let's start going. So, Maestro, a little traveling music if you please.
The New Kid on the Block.
Alright. This year was filled with a whole bunch of sequels, and while sequels are good, they have to have an origin point from somewhere. So, the best new game, the New Kid on the Block award goes to WrestleQuest. If you like video games, wrestling, RPGs, and toys, this game is a combination of all of those combined together to make something really great. I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy it too. Series. Speaking of sequels, like I said, after the original, the series must continue. So, which sequel, the series of the year goes to the best sequel? Which sequel had it going on? I'd say the winner for this goes to The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Single player.
One of the things I like about video games is how there's a lot of games out there that are multiplayer, but sometimes you just want to enjoy something by yourself, just a good single player adventure. And this one goes to One Piece Odyssey. As a fan of the One Piece franchise, it was great to get a new story and a new location. You get to see the Straw Hats again, so it was a fun play. Multiplayer. And like I said, while it is fun to do stuff by yourself, in the last few years, I found myself getting more and more into doing multiplayer games, getting to interact with other people and gamers. Now, like with the worst awards, I had more than one loser in those categories. But so for this one, I have more than one winner. There's going to be a couple of split awards. Anyway, so first of all, I played a bunch of multiplayer games this year, and I came to some kind of interesting realization. First of all, not all of them were from this year. Some of them are pretty old. But moving on, the first multiplayer game I'd like to give to Double Dragon Gaiden: Rise of the Dragons. Now, it is a multiplayer game, and while I think it does deserve to be multiplayer of the year, I wanted to make sure. Here's what I only played it on single player. I didn't do multiplayer, so I wanted to make sure I played a game where I was actually interacting with other people. Which leads me to my second conclusion. There was a lot of games I played this year, and when it was multiplayer, I noticed they had a card feature, card-based combat play system. Because the other game, multiplayer game of the year, goes to Friends vs. Friends. An interesting combination of first-person shooter, multiplayer, and a card-based combat system. Very, very fun.
Best free-to-play game.
The old adage is you get what you pay for. Now, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And this game, the best free-to-play game, is also a multiplayer game. And it also is another card combat-based game. And as I am a fan of superheroes, it was pretty easy. It was an enjoyable pick to go with Marvel Snap. I was originally thinking for best free-to-play would go to The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, but this one works a little bit better in terms of visual effects. Still, it's free to play, so you get what you pay for, and it's fun.
Plot.
Plots in video games have changed a lot over the years. Originally, you were just jumping up ladders trying to save this lady from a barrel-throwing gorilla, or being a yellow sphere eating dots and avoiding ghosts. And now video games actually have really good stories. I think the most interesting story and plot for this year, that award goes to My Friendly Neighborhood. I thought it was very interesting, like using a whole Muppet-based theme game. I really liked it. I thought it was very good. So I recommend you check that out. And like I said, winner for best story and plot.
Graphics.
One of the things I like is how you have games that are focused on hyper-realism or games that are cartoony, and sometimes you have a line that combines both. And so that's why I give Pikmin 4 the award for best visuals. It takes place in what looks like a real-world environment, but you are a very small cartoonish character controlling other small cartoonish characters fighting against larger, more violent cartoonish characters. So yeah, the game looks really great. And that's why it gets the award.
Audio.
While visuals are good, it's also good for audio. Because voice acting, sometimes it really helps. Or like if you can convey a story with little to no audio, that also works. But I think that the best representation for audio award goes to Hi-Fi Rush. The game looked great, it played great, it sounded amazing, it has a great soundtrack, and it was the first Steam game I reviewed this year. And the first Steam game I reviewed ever. So it was interesting. Yeah, it gets the audio award.
The rewards category.
And now it's time for the rewards. Every year, games do something where they remake it or repackage it, they reboot it, they redo it. Yeah, I've done the rewards a couple of times. So sometimes a game where a game gets remade and it either works for it or doesn't. Like in the case of 13 or Shadow of the Colossus. And speaking of Shadow of the Colossus, I gotta point that out. So, the game's been remade a couple of times, so I think it needs a reboot, as in, when the game was originally pitched, they wanted to have 50 Colossi in the game, and I think that would have been awesome, but they could only put in 18. And I'm like, okay. We're now up to the PlayStation 5, and here's what the graphics have been overhauled immensely. We got the special secret location items to find, the secret room, the secret weapon. So I don't get, if we have all these advancements, why can't we, have the other 32 Colossi that were originally planned out? I would love to see us get more Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah, I mean, come on, Team Ico, please. So yeah, let's get more Shadow of the Colossus. Okay, anyway, that was my rant for the the reboot. So now let's get into the rewards. Who won what?
Remake.
Do not let the title fool you. The Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp is actually a remake. It's not a reboot. Yeah, so the game was delayed on release and finally came out this year. Yeah, so it definitely wins the award for best remake. So thank you very much for that.
Reboot.
Okay, so for the reboot, I was looking at the titles I played and I was trying to figure out what was the rebooted title that came out this year. Mortal Kombat 1. I've heard this game has been rebooted a couple of times. Now, I myself have not played Mortal Kombat 1, but I wanted to have something, just to fill in this category. So it gets that.
Re-release.
The best re-release could also have been under the best remake category, but this was, instead of just 2 games, this was multiple games bundled into one package. So this goes to the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. So I liked how they got all these Mega Man titles into one thing. So way to go, adding to the Mega Man collection.
Last time on Aperture Gaming.
Now, when I started getting Steam, it was because I wanted to get some games that came out, but I didn't have access to at that point, either because of the system, or money, or other reasons. But here's what I try to make sure that when I play a game, I review it for this year. Now, the odds of me also reviewing games from previous years are going to go up, hopefully, because sometimes there will be a low game release period. But I wanted to pick one game that I had played from a previous year, and this award I'll be trying to instill as my series goes on. It'll be interesting how things work out over the next couple of years. But anyway, this year I wanted to highlight and pay credit to one game in particular, and that is Sunset Overdrive. This game came out and I thought it looked interesting, but I didn't have the system to play it. But then when I got Steam, I was like, okay, I could get this game. So Sunset Overdrive and a couple other titles were the driving force behind me getting Steam. And this game is fun. It looks great. It has an interesting story. It breaks the fourth wall habitually, and it's just a great game to play. It may be old, but it plays really well. I highly recommend it.
Great Expectations. The Charles Dickens Award for upcoming titles.
Alright, enough with the past. It's time to look to the future. Now, late this year, Grand Theft Auto 6 was announced, and they said it'd be coming out in 2025. And some people have speculated it might be like the end of the year of that. So here's what. There's a bunch of games that I have a bunch of games that I am looking forward to, but here's what. I want to make sure that I'm covering only 2024. And while this list does say that these games are slated for 2024, there's a couple of them that are just saying coming soon, but still. These are titles, I think they're interesting. Who knows how it'll work out, but I suggest you keep an eye out for them also. The following titles are for 2024, in the majority, and I think you should look out for. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney Trilogy, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, Skull and Bones, Nightingale, Pacific Drive, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Princess Peach, Showtime, Rise of the Ronin, Cat Quest, Pirates of the Caribbean, Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, Lightyear Frontier, Star Wars Outlaws, Ark Raiders. Now, this is a game, not a game, it's a DLC. Alright, Fallout London, a DLC-sized mod. It's for Fallout 4 and it'll be released April 23rd of 2024. A Bonnie Odyssey, Bionicle, Masks of Power, Pal World. There's a lot of titles I know, but hey, that means the year is going to be interesting. I look forward to that. And now, people of the internet, I am proud to welcome you to
The Big Three.
Now, for this year, this award category should be called the Big Six, because there's actually 2 winners in each category. But yeah, the Big Three represented the big 3 things that matter for this year. Like, who's taking home the top award? Who's taking home the big controller? Well, let's get into the Big Three, starting with
DLC.
Now, when you make a game, you hope that it is great. And if it is, then kudos to you-dos. But the problem is, what happens if you make a DLC that makes the game even better? Well, that's a good kind of problem. So anyway, there were 2 DLCs that deserve this award. Okay, they're a little conflicting, and here's why. So first off, I want to give the first DLC award to Assassin's Creed Mirage. Yes, I ragged on Ubisoft at the start of this video because it was worse, but here's the thing. Ubisoft, at least when they provide DLC, it's interesting. Like, they give you so much stuff. They give you cosmetic DLC, they give you level DLC, they give you weapons and items DLC, and I find this a little conflicting, but they also give the DLC where if you are having trouble finding something, you can get a map overlay that reveals all the hidden secrets. Not really my cup of tea, but some people might want, need, or like that. So, interesting about the variety that DLC that they offer. And now the other DLC that I want, the reason why I picked the Ubisoft one is because, along with that one being good, there was some DLC that came out this year. It was for Mario and Rabbids, Sparks of Hope. Now that game came out in 2022, so while the game itself is from last year, the DLC came out this year. So just wanted to make sure, since the DLC did come out this year, just making sure that it was, within the ballpark of the same year. Anyway, so sorry for the long rant.
Team.
Now, the studios that we wouldn't have these games without the people who produce it and the people who develop it. So, the two developing studios for the games. This award is because these 2 studios did things that are simultaneously similar yet different. This award goes to Mega Cat Studios and Nintendo. Why? Okay, Mega Cat Studios developed WrestleQuest. Now, on the day that the game was supposed to be released, they discovered a bug that would prevent the game saving progress. So it was pulled. So day of release, it was pulled from the shelves for them to spend 1 more week fine-tuning and fixing the problem. And I respect that. I mean, they could have just left the game on there and said, "Oh yeah, we will deal with this bug later." No, they took the time to, they wanted to put the last bit of fix on the game. So that's respectable. Now, Nintendo, they did a similar thing because the reason why Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out when it did, I saw something that said that they spent a year working solely on polish. They wanted to make sure this game was, great. Which is kind of why the game won't be getting DLC, which I'm a little mixed feelings on, but like I said, both these studios, they wanted to make sure the game was good, so that explains why one game was a year in delay and one was a week in delay. They're trying to make sure it was the best game it could be, so I have much respect for that.
Game of the Year.
Well, folks, here it is. The big one. The Games of the Year. These two games, I think, were the biggest ones of the year. Fun to play, and both of them are sequels because when you got a good story, you just want to, it's a page turner. You want to read the next part, you want to play the next part, you want to see how it goes, you want to enjoy it. So the Game of the Year, this goes to these 2 games. It goes to...
The first award goes to The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. It was great because this series, it gave us so much, and then they came back for 1 more chapter showing what happens after Happily Ever After. Spoiler alert, it doesn't last. And the other sequel Game of the Year goes to Spider-Man 2. This was great. The first game was great. Then we got the adventures of Miles Morales. And then we got a brand new story to keep going with the Spider-Verse, including Venom. So everyone loved that. So yes, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Spider-Man 2 are the winners of the Game of the Year. And that is all the time we have for this episode and for this year. We thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed these games and watching me review them as much as I did and playing them. Until next time, this is Test Subject 1337 for Aperture Gaming saying thank you for watching, and as always, game on and have a nice day.